We've already had one player eliminated, but now it's time to find out who gets that first spot in the round of 16 of the WCS Premier League. It's going to be Harstem versus Polt. We've been talking about it, rematch from Season 2 finals, but that one, I mean, we don't want to talk about that too much because it was a very one-sided result.
In score, yes, but let's transport our brains back to that time. And actually, we start off with a 2-base Colossus push, which is apparently all Harstem ever does. But it actually almost worked. It had Polt up against the ropes, and Polt pulled out some brilliant, actually awesome play, which is round of 16 Polt. This is round of 32, though, and if Polt continues to play a little bit sloppy, Harstem can get in there with this gigantic, huge Nordic body and slam him to the ground and win.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big talking point at the Season 2 finals. It was like,
how big he is?
Yeah,
yeah, that's what you remembered, right?
Really tall.
Yeah, it was impressive. I think most people remember that, right? You stand on stage, I introduce the guy. I mean, for me, maybe it's because I called him out on stage.
Yeah,
It's going to be Harstem, and then it's going to be Polt, and then like Polt walks out and he looks just absolutely tiny compared to Harstem. A bit of a David and Goliath look on stage, but of course, it was the result in terms of in-game, right? Obviously, the Goliath here in Group A overall, it's going to be Polt.
Yeah.
Harstem. Now, half joking, of course, the whole 2-base Colossus all-in kind of deal here for Harstem. Do you think we're just going to see that repeated here and just him kind of throwing his chances at the win?
Well, if it was Rotterdam that said that he really hated the mid-game kind of mass medevac, mass harassment style, and if he gets a chance, he's always just going to go for those committed, Colossus pushes. If he hated that and he was scared to play like, Major in that style, I can't imagine how scared he is to play Polt.
I hope it was more reactive because he saw 3CC really fast, which is what Major was doing. That series, like the first game was close and cool, and Polt really pulled off a nice win, but game 2 was actually not close, and Polt seemed to be kind of dialing in with like, oh, you are doing a 2-base Colossus push with very little to no upgrades behind that. And it did make for a quick exit for Harstem. I think with that in mind, and that was just Toronto, which is just a couple months ago at this point in time, he needs to look at this and say, if Polt really mixes things up and goes 3CC, which he sometimes does, I say to be scientific, but I really think he doesn't. I hope to see different things from Harstem is what I'm saying. And it's nice because if he does lose this, he has to face Betrayus, which right now in particular, Protoss in Europe really enjoy the PvZ matchup. So he's got to feel pretty good about his chances, but man, beating Polt here would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, because he's got kind of like, all right, well, I feel pretty good about the match coming up next. Going up against Betrayus, I should have the upper hand there. Maybe this is the chance to say, all right, can I try something new? How well does this stack up against a player like Polt? And maybe that can work as a confidence boost for Harstem going forward if he makes it to the round of 16. Well, first up, of course, is going to be Polt, though, standing pretty much in everyone's way, no matter which group he ends up in both the round of 32 and round of 16 every tournament. And here he is looking to just secure first seed, as most people, including himself, would expect him to do in the round of 32.
Yeah, I feel like most Polt should just play very conservative, very safe, especially because Harstem has shown, that fast Colossus push, no upgrades. I mean, if it goes into the mid-game on even terms, I feel like Polt's very favored. So he's probably just going to play super safe and, put it in his head, as long as nothing crazy happens, as long as there's not some extreme cheese or bust, I should be in good shape here.
Harstem listening to the Spice Girls, a tradition that he does to get pumped up for the game. Still very big.
What song?
In the Dutchland. If you're going to get with me, you got to know my friends first.
If you're going to be
That's actually it.
Yep.
You just nailed
there
it.
you go.
Basically,
right.
you're posh.
Well,
yep. Thank you.
Good to know. Good to know all the details on how Harstem gets pumped up for his games. He does look
coda.
ready.
No
yeah,
coda.
No coda.
Oh my!
It's actually a Harstem video as well. I mean, it isn't that bad. When we were looking at the stats, actually, it was 4-8 in the favor of Terran for Coda. So it's not totally unusual. The big factor here, I think, is going to be Cactus Valley. That's the third and final deciding match. It's a map that I personally hate playing as Protoss, but not only did Harstem pick it against Polt last season, he also picked it against Major, and now again against Polt.
He's like, Colossus push.
Yeah, all day. That's what I would be expecting.
Iron Fortress so hard to take a third, and this is going to be the first map, so... it's weird. It's like that low-hanging fruit for, like does Harstem just go, oh, man, I basically have to Colossus push again?
Maybe.
And it's like, Polt's like, yeah, that's fine. I'll have Marauders at your base in no time. Like, it's cool.
Yeah, it is time to find out. But I think a lot of people would agree with you that, you know what, if anything, this is the chance that everyone's hoping to say, all right, Harstem, what else you got? What
Right.
can you show us? Win or lose, what can you show us leading into the Season 3? Of course, right now, both players fighting for the round of 16 spot, but either player, if you lose, you do have another chance to go up against Petraeus in Group A of the round of 32. Time to find out who's our first player in the round of 16.
A rematch between the champion of Season 1 and, of course, Harstem as they competed in the round of 16 of Season 2 in Toronto. It was a pretty one-sided affair, Roddy.
Yes, it was. Even though there was a small moment on Cactus Valley where we're like, is he going to make it happen? And then Paul just being too good in, intercepting reinforcements and stuff like that. The way that we know him. Paul, however, is most likely going to play very different than Major did earlier today. So we're definitely looking at a fresh TVP series where I do expect Harstem to switch it up a little bit and possibly bust out a couple of different builds than the Colossus all-in that we've seen a couple of times now.
Yeah, I mean, both players with an extra life. Very important to keep in mind as we are in the winter match for Group A in the World Championship Series Premier League. In the southwest position, we have the blue Terran player, CM Storm's Pult, looking to make it forward as he pretty much always does, Roddy.
Yep, on the right top side of Iron Fortress, of course, we're looking at the red Protoss base from my fellow Dutch Protoss. It is Harstem. And I love how the boys were talking about, how tall he is. Once upon a time, Nate, we called Harstem Little Kevin in the Dutch scene. As Kevin played a little bit of Harstem, that is, played a little bit of Warcraft 3 as well. But he came around, or he started playing a little bit later than I was, and back then he was very young, so he was actually really short. And I'm not small myself.
What does short mean when you're talking about someone who's Dutch?
Well, actually, back then it was feet or centimeters, maybe like
either.
Well, at least
I can do both now.
Let's say 2 feet shorter than he currently is. So he truly was. No, he was little Kevin. He was actually he was small, man. But he was still very young. And right now, well, some people still call him Little Kevin. But I traveled with him. I was standing next to him in the line to enter our airplane, and I looked up. I was like, man, you're really tall. He's like,
I don't envy Dutch people on airplanes, to say the least.
I'm Little Kevin now, Nate. doesn't feel great.
So Pult is going to open with an early SCV scout and a Reaper. Nothing crazy. So these guys actually talked about the builds obviously quite a bit when it comes to the 2-base Colossus pushes and whatnot. For cross spawn on this map, give it to me real talk, Roddy.
Not ideal at all, especially not against someone like Bolt. It's pretty much the same scenario as what we saw in Season 2. Bolt is a player who will most likely not go 3 CCs, which means he's going to have much quicker access to multiple medevacs, and you're not going to have all the time in the world to just march across the map with your Colossus army, and the fighting won't start at the Terran base. No, the fighting is going to start in your own natural, keeping the Mothership Core at home, you're going to be forced to use a Photon Overcharge because you want to start attacking. You don't want to leave half your army behind against a potential drop. This is already interesting as well. Pult is opening up with Rex number 2 and 3, so there's not going to be any mine drop shenanigans. Perhaps worried about some strong 2-base counter from Harstem, even way before Colossus, something that Lilbao often does.
Yeah.
But instead, it's going to be a Stargate opening, which should be scouted over here by this Reaper, by the way.
Yeah, the Reaper comes in, immediately sees the Stargate, and you made a really great point. Because of the 3 barracks opening, Pult should be totally fine to stand against any fast Oracle-based play. Obviously hurts quite a bit for Harstem as that he did let the Stargate finish up. He will build an Oracle.
Big difference there. Harstem doesn't go into the main base. I can't blame him because his probe is way later than it was, for instance, on Coda when he did see that Major was going to have the factory follow-up. This time he won't see it just yet. That Oracle, however, is going to identify that Pult has indeed opened up with 3 Rexes, and Harstem is just going to kind of be forced to take the game from there. I agree with the boys at the analysis desk when it comes to it's pretty difficult to stabilize against, let's say, that moment when there are 4 medevacs of Stim Bio on the map, and you're trying to go up to 3 bases as Protoss. Iron Fortress is a pretty big map. It's a pretty wide open map as well.
There's so many different angles that medevacs can get into your natural or your main base, and I guess everybody's already talked about it by now. The 3rd base is just, it's a nightmare.
So the feeling that I have right now from Harstem after watching his build so far is that we may even see him go up to Colossus and then a double forge, just to switch things up, go up to a lot of workers already on 2 bases, double forge, and then slowly but very steady and very safe go up to 3 bases. I wouldn't mind seeing that approach at all.
I like that, especially if Pult sees the fast Colossus opening and realizes this could actually be that Colossus push, and you try to sell that story to your opponent. And I think against someone like Pult, you need to be able to do that, but it also comes back to he's so good at StarCraft. It's like, how do you pull a fast one on someone this good?
Yeah, something we don't talk about often enough, I think, is the image you have as a player and the image you build up in a tournament. Everyone watches these games, you know, if you're not playing, of course you're watching the other best of 3 that's going on in your group right now. You want to see A, who's winning, who are you going to face, and B, especially when it comes to the same matchup, well, I can learn so much from this. There's going to be an Immortal, I think that's kind of a safety Immortal for now. Whenever you see a Terran opening up with 3 Rexes, you're always worried that he throws up 3 missile turrets and he rallies all the units across the map. Then if he stims in and you barely have any units to defend, you're going to lose a lot of probes, and that Immortal is going to buy some time for you and will hammer down those few Marauders, and then Zealots and Photon Overcharge should take care of the rest.
Oracle!
That's a very painful loss, man. You really don't want to lose your Oracle in this phase in the game, especially not because Oracles are so good.
Oh my.
What
This
is he-
army
what is
this
he
army
doing with
position,
it?
is he really going to try to do third base right now? That army needs
No,
it.
there's
You gotta
no way.
back it up.
There's
You
no
want
way.
to back it up against this. You are not going to win a fight against that army right now.
No, you can be happy if you don't end up losing a whole lot of probes. But there is a probe that's going across the map, so maybe it is just going to be 2 base.
No. Is he really? Is this? Oh boy. I'm scared that he could act like if he waited any longer.
I like that. Very, very early Photon Overcharge, but why
That's
not?
so
you know?
many Marines and Marauders. Like,
Exactly.
If he actually just, went ham and just chased
Stimmed.
that army back in, I think he actually, it
Yep.
would have been worth. You could have
Yeah.
killed all the probes in the natural.
One Colossus changes everything. If that Colossus
Yeah.
isn't there, it's going to take quite a while before all these Marines and Marauders die. And like you said, those Zealots would have died, the Stalker would have died, the Sentry would have died, the Immortal would have died, maybe the Mothership Core, if not at least 10 probes or so. One Colossus, however, changes everything, changes the entire dynamic of this. And because of the opening Polt went for, he's going to have access to Medivacs a tiny bit later than he would have had if he would have gone CC into factory follow-up immediately.
Yeah, I agree. So it's not the fastest possible. Medivacs is usually you want to be finishing up around like 10 minutes, 10 and a half is when like the Medivacs are actually coming out. But that means if he wants to get Medivacs to the drop play, he can't have Vikings. And really, really hinders your ability to defend, but of course makes it more difficult for Hearthstone to actually push out of his base. So like you talked about earlier, trying to take that third base is nice, but he still hasn't even dropped any Forges. You can't play the long game just massing Stalkers and Colossus.
So is this the reverse mind game? Like, there's no way I'm going to do the same build again. I've already done it two times in a row. This time I'm going to do something different.
He can't possibly actually Colossus push me again.
But with 5 Rexes though, like Polt didn't even go for his third CC after the 3 Rexes and the Starport. No, he dropped Rex number 4 and 5.
Where's
and
the Mothership Core?
look at this, he's gonna throw bunkers already. He's been watching these games. He's like, you're
knows.
not going to fool me, man.
Yeah.
It still doesn't mean it's going to be easy though. Polt still has to be very careful about how he wants to engage his army. This is very risky, by the way. Imagine if those bio units would have stimmed in from the side. You lose 2 Colossus,
that's
you
it.
lose the game.
Yeah, those Colossi they're everything right now for him. And, he's coming up to these bunkers. Now, it's a great position. He can flank him from all sides. He can hit this Protoss army.
I don't like this position for Hearthstone at all, because now if you attack move, a couple of units are going to shoot at those bunkers. So he's repositioning his units, but SCVs will do a very good job.
Surround. A third Colossus is going to show up, but the meat to protect these Colossi has been peeled away, and now those big juicy units exposed.
Oh my God.
Hearthstone's army completely obliterated, and that's pretty much it, Kev.
Yeah.
GG.
With 2 supply left, you don't really want to play out the game against the Terran that has so many units remaining. Hearthstone going for the same build again, cross-map Iron Fortress, and I felt that he was rushing it a little bit too much there. It was going to be pretty hard to pull off regardless, because Polt had plenty of units. He didn't play a very greedy economic style, no. He put most of his resources into the actual army. But when you walk that deep into the natural, you can't just attack move anymore. And as you know, that's what we Protoss players are very good at, attack moving with our Colossus army. Because if you attack move, half of your army is going to shoot at those bunkers or a couple of SCVs, so you're going to have to run back. But then units were coming in from the north side as well.
If you recognize that that's happening, or you have an observer watching that flank, you send a unit up that ramp, you pull up into the right side, and then you have everything coming in that ramp, and that's when the Colossi can really do work. That ramp to the right side. But by being here, those SCVs actually trigger the AI of the Colossi for the attacks. So the first couple shots go there, then they come off to the side, and the bio's just so spread out in such a kind. The Immortal, all these Stalkers hitting SCVs.
Yep, there's just like 4 or 5 units shooting at SCVs on the south side of this battle. Then one Colossus comes in that's picked up immediately, and this final warp in, it just came a little bit too late. Unfortunate there for Hearthstone. Now the big question is, Nate, is he going to switch it up a little bit on Terraform over here? He has to. He absolutely has to, right?
I don't know, Kev. This is... he's like being forced into doing this build every game. It's like, well, I don't know if I can beat Polt in a straight-up game, so I gotta do my strongest push possible. Well, that didn't work. Okay. It's like, oh, he's being greedy. Well, I gotta do my strongest push possible. And then now, Terraform, it's like, well, there's a better choke point here for Colossi, so maybe I do my strongest push possible.
There's always a reason to go for a certain all-in. Like, you know, if you keep telling yourself
you can always make up a reason.
Yeah,
It's like this map's really good for it, or it's like this map's not good for it, but that means he won't expect it.
I know, we can twist it in any way we want. But the moral of the story is that Paul has been watching these games before, and he was more than ready. From start to finish, he was extremely ready to receive a push like this. And you know, Paul being Paul, the experienced veteran StarCraft player, just didn't struggle with it at all. He made it look easy, Nate.
He does that a lot, and it to the despair of many Terran players as they try to do the things that he does and fail miserably. He's up 1-0 in the bottom right, of course. It is CM Storm's Polt, who's just successful in general at pretty much everything.
You know, this is his 9th season into WCS, and he has never failed to make it into the quarterfinals. How ridiculous is that?
That's pretty ridiculous. He's very good. You know, we got like the 10 WCS season like trophy. He needs to come back. Just get another one, you know, some sort of award for keeping in the system this long.
A round of 16 badge on the left top side of Terran form. Of course, looking at the Red Protoss base of Harstem, representing Invasion Esports.
I won't like Kev. I'd be pretty jelly of a WCS pin for like people that have like made a certain number of consecutive seasons. That'd be awesome.
No, I know. It's a great idea. Yeah. We stole it, but it's okay. Still a great idea. It's better to steal a great idea than come up with something that's terrible, Nate. And that's why we all watch Korean StarCraft, so we don't have to do our own horrible build orders, or we can just steal theirs.
I'd rather take Polt's builds than try the ones that I come up with, to say the least. 4-port Banshee was good, but not a TSL winner.
Curious to see where this one is gonna go. Of course, if you're Harstem, there isn't too much pressure on your shoulders going into this series because he's looking at a final match potentially against Petraeus, and I really like Harstem's PvZ, man. I saw him play against Nurcho in WCS Challenger, and Nurcho just the other week showed us that he's absolutely no slouch, that he's still a very serious contender, making it into the quarterfinals of the Intox 3 Masters Cologne. But when Harstem went up against Nurcho, you know, there was no argument. Harstem was the better player in that matchup. Won the series decisively, 3-0. Definitely had to work for it. As a couple of those games, Nurture put up a very good fight. But, you know, Harstem's PvZ is solid and has been solid for a long time. So I think Harstem looks at this series. If you can defeat Polt, that would be awesome. You know, that's a great motivation boost. That's a great confidence booster. But if you don't win it, it's not the end of the world.
No one's going to hold it against Harstem if you lose to Polt. Of all people. I will say, tiny things I like. People on this map, I guess. I don't know how often it gets pointed out, perhaps every single game against Terran. But that pylon on the right side of Harstem's base completely blocks the Reaper from being able to go in. It's totally closed off.
Definitely, I squeeze it in every now and then when I cast PvT. It took me a while as well before I realized that. I was like, does it actually block?
Because I just had a game where I was like, okay, I'm going to send my Reaper, I'm going to go attack. And then I clicked there and I'm like, this is a ramp. Why aren't you going up?
Terraform has a couple of interesting pylon locations. You know how we always say as Iron Fortress is usually designed by a Zerg player? I kind of feel that this map may be being designed by a Protoss player, because you can also drop a pylon in the third base all the way in the edge, and then you can warp in Dark Templars into the natural. That's so disgusting.
Oh, well, I mean, I've lost enough ladder points people doing that. That's no surprise.
Parting was the first one who did it at IEM Shenzhen, yeah, right there where Flo is pointing right now. I was like, where are those DTs? The guy had a missile turret up front, but then he just walked in the DTs behind the missile turret. I was like, man, that's gross Parting.
There's one thing that I can always trust Protoss players to do. It's find new dirty ways to kill me very quickly.
That's where we excel, Nate. Of course, it was very unfortunate in the previous game that Harstem ended up losing his Oracle as well. Like, we're looking at Oracles in this matchup when it's an economic opening like this. This was not a proxy Stargate of the second pylon. So this Oracle that Harstem is going to make doesn't necessarily have to kill a whole lot. But it is nice though, and I also feel that people undersell that sometimes. You know, they say like, well, you can go on Oracle, and even if you don't kill anything, it's fine. You know, you have map vision, you know what you're playing against, you can keep track of the meta effects later on with Revelation. But it's still very nice. You can actually kill 3, 4, sometimes maybe you get very lucky, 5 SUVs. But at the moment, you know, players like Polt, they've been getting so good against this. Polt hasn't scouted it yet. Flo showed us as well. It's not confirmed that it's a Stargate. He may expect it, because, you know, Harstem is a big fan of opening Oracle in this matchup, kind of like Liubal. But knowing and thinking is a big difference.
Yeah, it's going to be very important to be in the right position. I mean, it's a quick concussive shell opener, so Pult doesn't actually want to be stuck in his base with these Marines. He wants to build a missile turret and push out immediately.
Oh man, it's so unfortunate, because if this Oracle would have gotten into the natural, it would have actually been able to pick off 1, 2, maybe 3 SCVs or maybe a fresh mule, but now Pult is going to reposition all of his units, and once more this Oracle will be completely reflected for now.
Yeah, Hearthstone not able to do too much with it as this army does start to push across. I will say, if Pult tries to do that thing, and a lot of Terran players, including myself, I like doing this, if you open Concussive Shell, you do want to trade your units out for something. You know, move in, kill these 2 Stalkers, get them all the ship core and a few probes, and then you're a happy boy. But if you push in and there's an overcharge, and you try to do that thing where you just like run through and focus down workers, that's where the Oracle really excels. You will shred those Marines so quickly, it really helps mitigate the damage that you would otherwise take from a push like this.
And it's risky as a Terran to click on that Oracle, because Oracles accelerate quite quickly, especially when you don't have stim. So if you focus on it and you shoot and you waste an entire volley, and then suddenly the Oracle still gets out there with 10 HP, well, you're hating life, because you know all the damage you just did to the Oracle could have been 4, 5, 6 dead probe kills.
Yeah, so Pult realizes this. He's like, yeah, it'd be a bit silly. I mean, for a push in there. So he steps back. I think a very intelligent move. But that being said, by getting the concussive shell and delaying stim, he also delays his factory a little bit. And that robotics bay is now done. So the first Colossus could be on the way. And
I refuse to accept this.
I don't know, Kev. I think we're gonna see Colossus push again.
No, see? Forge. Just go double Forge. Double
the dream.
Forge. I want to see 2 Forges.
The greatest fate of all. Okay.
Forge Twilight. Forge Twilight, Forge. But Forge Twilight for now is also fine. You want to make sure you can get a couple of units
Kev,
out at least.
I'm going to test you. +1 attack or armor?
For Hearthstone?
Yeah.
I think armor.
Okay. I was thinking armor too.
I mean, armor in general is better for passive games. Attack, of course, better if you want to go for a big
actually
push.
Pushes in. I mean, this is where I was saying like that Oracle's useful. It has a lot of energy though. Don't want to waste it all. It's actually the force field's killing everything pretty
Very
well.
solid force fields. Unfortunately, one of those stocks do get picked up in the end, but you know that was pretty easy. Even without the Colossus, he handled that very well.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Starport is going to be finishing up soon. There it is. Okay, armor on the forge, so those zealots be a little bit more tanky, a little more difficult to kill stuff for Pult, but his +1 attack will be done first, of course. Blink is on the way too, so a more drawn-out game from Hearthstone. Right about now, Pult should be thinking to himself, okay, we have maybe 4 gateways coming in and getting ready for that next push.
Yep, as once again he went for Rex number 4 and 5. I do like that, even when right now it would have probably been better to go for that 3rd CC before Rex number 4 and 5. I can't blame him for the way that Hearthstone has been playing today, even in game number 1 against him. You know, just be safe. And I think it makes a lot of sense what Pult is doing here. It's going to slow down his economy a tiny bit, but will also give him a few more units to work with. So maybe he can make something happen, maybe a drop into the main, maybe deny the 3rd base, one of the 2. Either way, you're going to be happy as Terran, as long as you achieve something with all these units that you will have access to.
Yeah, and you know, Terran vs. Protoss is really just about bullying the Protoss into a position where they're forced to attack in a bad spot, whereas as Protoss, you generally want to hold the Terran in, do what you can not to take damage from the drops, build that ultimate army, and then force an engagement on your terms where you can fight it all at once and use all your abilities, you know, the splash from the Colossi, potentially from Templar, all of those things to, you know, sweeten the deal into one delicious Sunday.
As we have a minor pause, as Hearthstone feels there is something slightly wrong with his keyboard. He actually wrote in the game, he said like it feels very wrong, especially when it comes to warping in Zealots. So as far as I know, he hasn't really wiped in a whole lot of Zealots yet.
I was going to say, I'm like, we're not,
mind games.
I was going to say, I'm like, we're not on the old Legacy of the Void. It's like not actually 8-second warping or anything. I was like, that'd be a fun bug.
No, that would not be a fun bug. I played a couple of games of StarCraft that day. Even against you, Nate. I ran into you on ladder with my slow warp-ins. Wasn't fun.
It's so much fun. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I'm glad David Kim switched that one. At least for now.
Just warp in at depths instead, Kev. It's okay.
I heard that very strong.
They are the terror of my nightmares.
I believe we are good to go again, so we can hop straight back into the game as this Oracle is cruising around. 47 workers on either side. Also getting a cannon. We haven't seen a single Widowmine drop yet from Pult. It's funny. The Revelation, just tagging these medevacs. Doesn't get any other units, but that's fine.
I mean, knowing where the medevacs are is, you could argue that's enough.
Oh, have you seen Patience Against Fantasy, though,
I've heard about it. I don't know. You can, I mean, if he's watching them, 24/7, you could know whether things go and loads up. But
I know. It was a great move though. It was one of these like super cool moves.
that's one of those things that you. The thing is, it happens to him though a lot, because it also happened. It was Fantasy who like had like the miracle last hit against. Might have been. Oh, I can't remember the Zerg's name, but like in GSL or whatever, with like the Banshee. On the King stage
yeah, that's ridiculous.
Fantasy just gets into those weird spots, to be honest. He just like forces all these weird things to happen. It's like sometimes it works and it looks brilliant, and other times we're like, okay, you can leave the game now, Fantasy.
I mean, that's why he always believes in the fancy GG timing, right?
That's true though.
Never give up.
I mean,
never
any
surrender.
any sane players like 1 Banshee, 20 Corruptors, 6. Nah, okay, I'll leave. It's like no, I'm Fantasy.
Absolutely. This Oracle, Kevin has done, Hearthstone that is, has done a much better job in keeping the Oracle alive for now. It's always hard. Man, that poor Marauder. Wow, he actually
Never going home.
I was about to say, if he lives to tell the tale of what happened on the other side of the wall.
They sent me to walk across this narrow gap.
Oh, Widowmine.
Oh! Nice. He tagged that SCV.
Oh, that's something. It's always so unfortunate as a Protoss, because you fly in, and the moment you see the mine light up, and you know
it's already too late.
You're like, oh god, there's a mine. Okay,
I love that when it flies in and then it like moves in 6 directions.
Yeah.
You can just know the Protoss is like clicking everywhere. They're like, no.
Yeah.
It's like goodbye.
It's a feeling that both Terrans and Protoss players are very, very familiar with, either happiness or joy. Charge is on the way now, and +1 is going to be the next upgrade for Hearthstone, so no +2 armor. So he wants to do some damage too. This is that phase in the game where normally it can be difficult, especially against someone like Paul. We know that his multitasking is absolute top-notch. He has an observer there though. There are 2 observers. Hearthstone decided to not put them on patrol. That's probably a decision.
4 medevacs up top and this massive army on the south. Splitting up his army, trying to defend. It seems like the main base is safe. This third is quite well covered too. And the Stalker's actually playing forward. Grab a medevac.
Very solid so far.
Swats him back.
Yep, very solid. What I want to say is that some Protoss players like to put their observers on patrol because you cover slightly more area. But there's one downside to it, and that is that it becomes a little bit
easier to see. Yeah. It's definitely easier to see moving observers.
Exactly. So if an observer is just sitting there, it becomes very tricky for a Terran. Most of the time as a Terran, you can still throw down a scan because, you know, no Protoss is going to play blind against you. That's just suicide. Playing blind against a Terran, medevacs will fly in from angles you didn't even know existed, Nate.
Yeah. Well, at least in these ones, I don't know, my ladder game's like, oh, there's no observer, let's go. It's 8 Stalkers. I'm like, damn it.
This guy's not right. Let's take a look at the replay, guys, and then you see, like, man, he had 4 observers across the map. Like, I guess he saw me coming. Still, though, that doesn't make any sense at all.
I don't see any observers, Kev. I don't know what you're talking about.
Awesome against, but this will be a great moment. You know what's really awesome for a Protoss? When there isn't too much fighting happening, when there isn't too much trading happening, these medevacs, they gather up energy, and they will keep gathering up energy. There's going to be another big drop though, and this time Hearthstone, his other units are a little bit out of position. Photon Overcharge is ready, but that is so much bio being dropped on top of these Colossus.
The Colossi positioning is actually, I think, still quite good. A lot of this bio gets forced into choke points, continuing to warp in Zealots to reinforce. Like,
so well done.
Paul just threw himself into a meat grinder.
That was so well done by Hearthstone. That could have gone very bad, but he moved those Colossus into the safe position on the north side of his main base. Man, look at the units lost resource tab as well. Paul lost 3,000 resources more.
Game pause.
I don't know.
Paul is like, yeah, you cheeky guy.
I needed a second, actually, to think about that after that happened. That's, wow.
That was very well done, because if those units would have been dropped like right on top of those Colossus, it's always a thin line between either all Colossus live or all Colossus pretty much die immediately. And it felt like the base layout, the base design of Hearthstone really helped him as well in keeping bio units only on one side. And he did a very good job in keeping his ground units where they were supposed to be, and then moving only the Colossus up north. So the Stalkers were able to absorb as many shots as possible. Of course, you don't want to lose Stalkers, but it's still better than losing Colossus.
Yeah, it's more important because those are obviously the easier units to replace. Now, as we are going back into the game, Hearthstone is in a position where he can take all those Colossi and waltz across the map if you really wanted to try and end it.
Yep. Like Hearthstone is doing pretty much everything right so far, and this has been a very good PvT. The only thing that I'm a little bit worried about is that he has no map presence on the other side of the map. You know, he's just defending, and he's doing a phenomenal job in defending, don't get me wrong. But as a Protoss, eventually you need to start attacking as well, because you're never going to win a game against a Terran that will only attack you and you're just sitting back. Eventually you have to attack. We'd love to see a Warp Prism, and there we go. There is a Warp Prism on the map. We'd love to see a probe make his way across the map, maybe drop a cheeky pylon here and there.
It's going to be tough. What exactly is spaced out? There's like blue dots all in the map. Are they all Widow Mines? That is really smart from Polt. Even if you kill it, like at least Polt knows that that area is a potential danger zone.
Yeah, the mini-map tells a very good tale over here. Polt has done a very good job when it comes to that.
Despite those trades, Polt actually has that 4th base now too, so Harsum has to make that choice. With the Templar Archives coming in, he could go for a bunch of Archons and try to push in.
Once again, something I wanted to mention before that very big massive attack happened in the main base, is that Polt, his medevacs are very high on energy. Templar Archives is finishing up right now. Most of these medevacs, well, these are healing up a little bit, but there are a couple medevacs out there that will die after a single feedback, and that is very, very good news for a Protoss. Like, I actually prefer facing medevacs with 150 energy than medevacs with 70 or 80 energy. Look at these medevacs, that's so juicy.
Oh,
feedback, 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 feedback.
You're giving me shivers, Kev. Stop. I can't handle it.
More. I'm getting the positive goosebumps over here. Must have something to do with the races we play, Nate.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't think anybody wants those medevacs to get feedback. Except maybe Harsum.
You know, like, obviously Storm is always great, but I also think if you can get guaranteed kills, you should always go for it. Love the Warp Prism. Once again, you're not going to win a game of StarCraft 2 by only defending, even though he's done such a good job in defending so far, and this Protoss army looks almost invincible. You want to be able to do at least something, otherwise, you know, Polt is just going to get very rich, and if you ever get caught out of position, to say, oh, look at those medevacs. If he left a couple of High Templars behind in the main base, I'm not sure if he did. No, he didn't. Well, he has 2 High Templars, actually.
The War Prism? Yeah, okay. When Storm's about to finish up, too, and I mean, a bunch of feedbacks. All those juicy medevacs, Roddy. Oh, my goodness. Oh, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Feedback. Oh, no, he's not responding. There's the first Storm. There's the feedback. Not really a whole lot, though. Big Zealot Warp ends at the same time. And cleaning up this South army as well.
Yeah, it's still acceptable for Harsum because he did drop both Storms and he wiped in a plenty of units. He had a couple cannons. Well, I said that, but maybe it's not that acceptable as the cannons are a little bit out of place. Oh, these High Templars are very exposed. Panic Storm's going down.
Yeah, the Colossi ran. They did a little ring around the rosy there. I mean, quite slow. Things just kind of falling apart right now for Harsum.
Yep, he's taking a little bit too much damage over here in this main base. There was no Colossus there. There was no additional damage.
If he had feedback those medevacs right as they came in.
Yeah, and he had vision of it as well. He had 2 observers. He kind of saw it, but perhaps just prioritize that army on the south side.
So much healing on these Breeds Marauders. Harsum just going to push across. He's going to try to punch it in. I don't know.
He's very rich, so that is great news. And of course, there are no Vikings, so it's very hard for Polt to fight an army of 4 or 5 Colossus. This game, Nate, is about to get very, very wild. Yeah. Does he have an observer with that army?
It looks like Polt is prepared to accept the offer for a base trade of some variety. I do not believe there's a Dark Shrine, so Polt, he doesn't have to worry about too much. Just kill stuff and keep preventing any additional units from being whooped in.
No +3 armor for you as that pylon gets taken out and the forge will be unpowered for now. I mean, it's safe to say that if these 2 armies clash straight up, there's no way. Even if Polt is up 30-40 army supply, you're not going to lose with Colossus and Archons against just Marines and Marauders. But Polt has absolutely no intentions of fighting this army straight up. And I can't blame him, Nate, not at all.
No, you absolutely don't want to do that. The production for the Terran player is being completely ravaged right now. Medevac trying to help some of these units escape. We're going to have probes and an Archon. Archon is not powerful enough after the mine took away all of its shields.
Polt only at 28 SCVs, Harsum now at 26 probes. That Mothership Core, you should probably try to send
That's not really doing a whole lot.
Yeah. Can't even drop a Photon Overcharge, and Photon Overcharge wouldn't really save the day against this army. Now, there are spaces on this map where buildings will be completely impossible to be attacked. Like right here where Flo is showing us, if you put a Rex there, as long as these Rexes are not burning, and these Rexes shouldn't burn, there's almost no way anymore for Harsum to win this game. If he ends up losing all his probes, Harsum has 1 probe now, by the way. Where is this 1 probe? Where is the chosen one? Oh god, you are so important, little guy.
Run!
You are so important right now, because if Harsum loses this Nexus, if he loses this probe, the best that Harsum can ever hope for is a draw. That's just the way it is.
No.
Run
for your life! No!
Oh, that's it.
GG, Polt will advance in first place out of Group A here in the World Championship Series. Not too much surprise, but Harsum really put it up a good fight there. Just, you know, you said it, you know, all those juicy medevacs with so much energy, those Templar, they were there, they were waiting.
Yeah, they were ready. They were ready for that F button, man. That F click is one of the most satisfying clicks in the game when you feedback those medevacs. Unfortunately, Hearthstone was just a tiny bit too late, and it's really just that one drop that spiraled out of control. You wipe in a bunch of units, you drop some storms, and you're like, this is it, right? Like, is this drop done now? And then you take care of an army on the south side, and you look in your main, you're like, oh god, there's still going on. And it's actually, there's too much left for just 3 or 4 zealots to clean it up.
The individual warp-in waves weren't enough, but then they're also on top of your gateways, so they just kill the pylons and you can't warp anything else in, and then it's pretty much over.
And then sometimes as a Protoss, you're just like, okay, enough is enough. I've been defending for the last 25 minutes. I'm going to run across the map right now. I want to finish this game.
And that's usually when Polt beats you.
Yes, don't base trade a Terran, especially not a Terran that carries a name, which is Polt.
Yeah, very, very difficult match. And as we can see, once again, this was pretty much it. This was that moment.
Look at all these medevacs. Each and every single one of those medevacs would have died of a feedback, other than that one medevac on the left. But 4 out of 5 would have just died.
Even here, this army took quite a while for the Colossi to get and kill, and they were able to get all those High Templar on the north side because the army just swung around here.
And I must always say, even when Hearthstone, these storms actually did very well, but even right now, when that drop was still going on in the main base, instead of wiping in just Zealots, you should still wipe in Zealots and High Templars. Even when you didn't feedback the first time, at least feedback now, so these medevacs run out of energy.
Yeah, that Mothership Core doesn't sit there basically just doing nothing to a Marauder for 20 minutes.
Exactly. Like, then every single bit of damage that your Zealots do is real damage, because those bio units won't get healed up anymore. But as long as there's energy on those medevacs, they will keep on healing for days, and that drop is going to stick around for days. Storm, yeah, it's great. Did a lot of damage. If it didn't kill the units, those units will be back on full HP in no time.
Yeah, tough series for Hearthstone. Polt advancing out. Hearthstone will have another chance as he will play against Patreus next. But let's hear from Chobra and the guys, and I think as well Polt.
Of course, what a surprise moving out from Group A. It's going to be Polt in the first seed Group A, the first player to make it into the round of 16. No stranger to the WCS Premier League and the bracket stage. Does it just feel like another day, another game, and another season?
Well, yeah, I know people thinking that way, but I don't know why, but I always struggled in round of 32. I mean, kind of. I lost one game against Petrius. It was a very sloppy game of mine. I didn't check that back base. I didn't know the rock was broken. Also, for the last game against Hearthstone, it was quite close. I might have been lost the game.
Yeah, it did look a little rocky. It's funny that you bring it up yourself. I mean, when we talk, we kind of joke always, is it the round of 32 Polt? Is it the round of 16 Polt? Or is it the finalist Polt? Which Polt is going to play today? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, is there something to that, do you think? Or?
Well, it's like opposite to me. I mean, for most of players, when they go more higher place, I mean, like just saying they are playing in the finals, they get more nervous and they make more mistakes.
Right.
It's very normal, but I'm kind of opposite. I make more mistakes in the round of 32, but less mistakes in the finals.
Yeah, well, whatever floats your boat for sure. What did you think about Polt's performance so far? I mean, I think it's a given now. He admits it himself. All right, round of 32, Polt, a little bit rocky, but I'm moving through. But as most people would expect, going out in first seed of Group A.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get to see your TVT, which I think is one of your best matchups. And TVP, it looked really sharp. That last game was close, but as the base trade scenario kind of came in, you seemed to pull ahead. Your TVZ, though, with Patreus, looked to be a little bit more difficult. And if we go back to Toronto, you lost to Hydra. How is your TVZ? How do you feel about the matchup these days?
To be honest, I'm struggling the most in TVG. That's right. I'm pretty confident in TVT and TVP. I can manage it, but in TVG, in my opinion, Terran doesn't have much to do in the mid-late game, because Zerg has spread overload and they see everything with creep tumors and their Zerglings units. So it's kind of difficult to make movement my opponent doesn't predict.
Have you experimented with a mech style TVZ lately, which a lot of Terrans think in Zergs 2 is very strong? I know you tend to kind of do the same things a lot, but in TVZ right now we're seeing a lot of that.
Mech is very strong recently, but everyone knows I don't really like to play mech, but if I really think it's the strongest strategy, then I will of course do it, but I'll not say here, even if I want to do it.
All right, well, we'll have to wait to find out if you've given it enough of a chance to find out if it's the best or not. Now, early in the year, of course, everyone goes back, and we talk about this because you were like, you know what? I'll go for 3. I'll go for 3 titles this year. Not able to happen in Season 2, but how are you feeling right now for Season 3? I mean, going to round of 16, most people expected that, but where do you view yourself? How comfortable are you about how far you can go in the last season of WCS this year?
Everyone knows there's only one player who can beat me is Hydra. And I also think I'm the only one who can beat Hydra. But if he doesn't get like very unlucky or something like that happens. So my focus is on him because he beat me in the last season. And I knew that he was focusing on me in the last season, but I failed. Anyways, for the Season 3, I think the map pool is okay for me. So I think I can bring up like quite a few refreshing strategies. I want to say that people can look forward to it.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, well, that's exciting.
He's going to go Mac.
Yeah, it's coming, everyone. He hasn't said it yet, but yeah, it's also nice to hear that you recognize that there is this rivalry between you and Hydra, and you guys are just gunning for each other. Of course, this time it's going to be Polt trying to aim for the target on Hydra's back, but we'll see if that happens in the round of 16. Once again, congratulations, Polt. Moving on to the round of 16. We'll see you in Poland, but for now, we have one more match in Group A. Who else will join Polt? We'll find out right after this break.